What's up, meta nerds? This video is all about the Colicoid. This is the insect species that brought us some of our favorite CIS droids, including the Droideka, Buzz droids, and the Droid Tri-Fighter. Located in the inner rim, the Coli system only has one sun, and the Colicoid all lived on the planet Coli 4. The entire planet had a tropical climate, and was home to 100 million to 500 million Colicoid. And this planet was home to some other terrifying creatures, like the Toothspike Raptor, which ended up being the inspiration for the Droid-class boarding ship, and the Pisto, the small insect that inspired the design of the Buzz droid. The Colicoids are anywhere from 1.8 to 2 meters tall, or 6 to 6.5 feet, and they were both highly intelligent and extremely ruthless. Combine this with a nearly insatiable appetite, these carnivorous insectoids struck fear into beings across the galaxy. They have 4 legs, each of which come to a very sharp point, and a pair of arms, and hands that had several digits. And on the backside of a Colicoid queen, who is also twice the size of a regular Colicoid, there was a massive stinging tail. For defense, they had a thick chitinous exoskeleton and the ability to curl up into a ball and quickly roll away to safety. It's said that these big red eyes gave them excellent vision, and these long antennae gave them an extremely good sense of smell. The average Colicoid lived to be 65 years old, but what's interesting is that they're considered adults by the age of 8, and they weren't considered to be middle-aged until 34 to 49 years old. So although their normal life expectancy is similar to humans, there's a big difference in the rate at which they matured. And what's really cool is that the insect-like biology of the Colicoid made them impervious to Jedi mind tricks, but a side effect of this was that none of them were Force users. Their insect-like legs and their antennas produced a whole bunch of clicking and humming sounds. This made their natural language very hard to interpret, and no other species in the galaxy could reproduce it. But luckily for the rest of us, Colicoids were able to speak basic, even if they had a thick Buzz accent. No outsiders were ever welcome to Coli 4. Anybody that got lost and ended up there was quickly eaten by the locals. This ruthlessness was carried over into their business dealings, and any off-worlders that had to work with the Colicoids all described them as being cold and calculating. And they would combine this with their unintelligible language to conspire against their business partners while standing right in front of them. The first thing written in the history books about the Colicoid is the role they played in the Cold War. This was an 11-year standoff between the Galactic Republic and the Sith Empire, which occurred way back 3,653 years before the Battle of Yavin. Coli 4's largest manufacturer, the Creation Nest, donated some Colicoid DNA to be used in experiments on the planet Balmorra. Their goal was to create a race of biologically superior and highly evolved Colicoid, but when the Sith Empire invaded the planet, they kind of threw a wrench into their plans. Many Colicoid who had already been mutated were now on the loose and blindly attacking any strangers. All of these efforts might have gone to waste if it wasn't for a Colicoid named Sesek. He met with a representative of the Sith Empire and convinced them to keep working on something he called Project Hexapod. As the war dragged on, the Colicoid were trying to figure out whether or not they would fight with the Sith or the Republic. Both groups wanted to forge an alliance with the Colicoid so that they could have access to the species' advanced weapons and vehicles. So to figure out who they would align with, our bug friends came up with the Colicoid War Game. They were able to convince the Republic and the Empire to compete in these war games with the agreement that whichever side won would also win the Colicoid as allies. The games took place on a remote asteroid at an unknown location in the Outer Rim. To determine the winner, both sides would send their most elite warriors, where they had to battle against traps laid on the field and against bloodthirsty Colicoids who would try to eat them. And we don't really hear much from the Colicoid until about a couple years before the start of the Clone Wars. They had a lot of infighting, and after warring with each other, a war in which there was much cannibalism, the Colicoid were able to reorganize themselves into a strict hierarchy where different nests all had a specialized role. And some Colicoid even attended a business meeting at which Darth Plagueis was present. And at what might have been the most ridiculous business meeting in the history of the galaxy, Viceroy Newt Gunray met with a leader from the Colicoid Creation Nest, and they struck up an agreement where the Trade Federation would provide them with 50 barge loads of exotic meat taken from all over the galaxy in exchange for a contract involving the production of the Droidekas. Sometime after the Battle of Naboo, Colicoid forces were able to take control of spice mines that were located on the planet Kessel. This brought in a whole bunch of credits, but when they tried to expand to Nar Shaddaa, they were stopped by a slaver named Crayon. The Colicoid Creation Nest was very prolific throughout the Clone Wars, and made some of the most iconic CIS droids, like the Droideka, Droid Tri-Fighter, Buzz droids, and they also made the Scorpenek Annihilator droid. This droid, which is basically the Droideka's big brother, was unknown to Republic forces since the Colicoid never let it off their planet, and when the Republic sent a strike team to take out one of the Creation Nest's largest factories, the clone troopers were ambushed by these massive droids, and nearly all of them were killed instantly. After this, the CIS implemented an orbital screen to help protect one of their largest suppliers of droids. The Colicoid were extremely insulted that the Republic had taken the war front to their home planet, and they increased the output of all of their droids, especially the buzz droids. And they made so many buzz droids, in fact, that at the end of the Clone Wars, the Colicoid were left with millions of these little insect-like droids, without having any enemy to use them on. During the Age of the Empire, 4 years after the Battle of Yavin, Cala 4 was turned into an Imperial fortress world, but it didn't stay that way for very long, being liberated by the New Republic just 1 year later. But decades after this, during the Yuzong Vong War, the Colicoid teamed up with the Galactic Alliance to help fight off these new foes from outside the galaxy. That's it for the Colicoid's history, but before you go, I want to talk about the real insects that helped to inspire the Colicoid. Their anatomy, and the way their society is organized, are both based on ants and bees, where each hive has a strict hierarchy with specialized roles, including workers, warriors, and queens. Well, that's it for the Colicoid species. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and be sure to leave a comment down below if I missed any cool facts, or if you have a suggestion for future videos. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at MetaNerdsLore, so you can see us build Star Wars props and cosplays, along with some other cool Star Wars stuff. If you want to help support this channel, check out the description below for our Amazon store and our Patreon. And be sure to subscribe, because we're making videos like this every single day. But more important than all that, remember, never make a crash landing on Cala 4, and the Force will be with you, always.